Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to Press for Truth TV. Today is Tuesday, June the 19th, 2012, and I have some good news off the top of the day today. As you may recall, in yesterday's vlog, we were talking about how the Canadian government was planning to outfit some airports here in Canada to be able to eavesdrop on people's private conversations. And yesterday we pointed out how these draconian measures leading towards this Big Brother Orwellian surveillance state are often done incrementally, and that is incredibly important that we oppose the incremental steps as they present themselves. And you may remember I was pointing out how it's the Privacy Commissioner who is going to have to step up to the plate and take this one on. And today we find out that that has indeed happened. Here is an article that just came out today from the Star. Harper government backs down on plans to eavesdrop on travelers' conversations. The Harper government has backed off on plans to install listening devices at Canadian airports and border crossings amidst serious privacy concerns. The decision by Public Safety Minister Vic Taves on Tuesday to halt the practice of eavesdropping on travelers' conversations follows a backlash from both federal and provincial privacy officials. This is the second time that Taves has had to climb down on the issues of privacy. The last time was the Internet Surveillance Bill. As with the last time, he defended the move, but then had to do an about-face. The Star confirmed Monday that the Federal Privacy Commissioner's Office had not even received a privacy impact assessment regarding CBSA's plan to introduce audio-video monitoring at Canadian airports. The recordings of conversations obviously constitutes a privacy intrusion. We would want the CBSA to demonstrate the necessity for it. That right there, I thought, was brilliant. You know, they're saying, if you're suggesting that we need this for more security, this is why you're doing this, you're going to have to prove that there is a need for this heightened level of security. You're going to have to prove that this type of thing is warranted. So definitely a great step in the right direction there. Continuing, it says, in addition, should the measures be deemed necessary, CBSA would have to demonstrate that it has proper safeguards to manage the information, proper compliance mechanisms, and appropriate oversight, a spokesperson for the Federal Privacy Commissioner said. Ontario's Privacy Commissioner says she is appalled that Ottawa plans to start eavesdropping on travelers' conversations at airports and border crossings. Ontario Privacy Commissioner Anne Kevoikian said Monday, while it is federal jurisdiction, she was no less taken aback that the Canada Border Service Agency was installing high-definition cameras and microphones with eventual plans to record what people are saying as they pass through certain areas of international airports. I find that appalling, Kevoikian said. Taves told MPs during question period on Monday that I can assure that the members that the privacy rights of law-abiding Canadians are respected at all times. Julie Carmichael, a spokesperson for Taves, said Canadians made it clear they weren't happy with the idea of having their conversations monitored. We have heard concerns from Canadians regarding the privacy impact of this practice. Carmichael said Taves directed the CBSA to halt audio monitoring until a privacy impact assessment can be submitted and recommendations from the Privacy Commissioner can be reviewed by the government. It is important for agencies tasked with protecting Canadians to have the right tools to catch smugglers and keep criminals and other unwelcome individuals out of Canada. It is equally important that these tools do not infringe on individuals' privacy in a way that is unjust or unnecessary to ensure security. And that's just it, isn't it? These measures are not necessary to ensure our security, and as the Privacy Commissioner said, if you feel that they are, you are going to have to prove not only why there is a need for it, but we're also going to have to ensure that there are all the proper safeguards in place to ensure that the basic fundamental privacy rights of Canadians are not infringed upon. And so it is nice to see that outsiders, I guess you could say, are looking at what's going on in Canada and noticing that there are indeed some very draconian bills, some laws being passed. There's a very slippery slope that is leading Canadians down this road into tyranny, if you will, and which brings us to our next interesting story, the fact that Human Rights Commissioner at the United Nations has just mentioned that Quebec's Bill 78 is very troubling to human rights and is yet another slippery slope leading towards a very tyrannical police state. Here is an article just out from Huffington Post. UN calls Quebec's Bill 78 alarming. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights is criticizing Quebec's Bill 78, a new law that imposes strict limits on student protests. Navi Pillay spoke out about the special law in her opening address at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland, Monday morning. In a speech of 5 single-spaced pages, Quebec was mentioned in 2 lines. Moves to restrict freedom of assembly in many parts of the world are alarming. In the context of student protests, I'm disappointed by the new legislation passed in Quebec that restricts their rights to freedom of association and of peaceful assembly. And again, that is bottom line, that's what it amounts to. And we know that these things are done incrementally, and they can potentially lead to even worse and worse things. There's already things going on in Quebec that are completely uncalled for. People getting arrested for simply wearing a red square. I read an article just the other day about how a woman was arrested on Quebec subway simply for sitting on the subway reading a copy of 1984, George Orwell's book, where he predicts this police state future that we are now emerged in. And so here is a response from Premier of Quebec Jean Charest and the Harper government in response to this United Nations human rights advocate speaking out against Bill 78. Here from the Ottawa Citizen. The Charest Liberals and the Harper Conservatives formed a united front Monday in condemning a United Nations agency for its criticism of Quebec's controversial Bill 78. The latest spat, the second in recent weeks between the federal government and a branch of the UN, also sparked debate over who is responsible for a growing divide between Canada and the world body. Navi Pillay, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, said Monday she found the controversial Quebec law to be part of an alarming trend. The law sets rules for gathering of more than 50 people, requiring organizers to provide 8 hours notice of the itinerary and length of the event. Pillay expressed her opinion of the Quebec law in a single paragraph of a long speech in Geneva, during which she laments rights violations in places such as North Korea, Zimbabwe, and South Sudan. Moves to restrict freedom of assembly in many parts of the world are alarming. In the context of student protests, I'm disappointed by the new legislation passed in Quebec that restricts their right to freedom of association and peaceful assembly. And the article goes on here, and I just want to scroll down and show you what Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird had to say about this. Baird says, quote, Quebec is a very democratic place, subject to the rule of law. People can challenge the government's decision in court, so I stand behind the government of Quebec. With what's going on in Syria, with what's going on in Iran and Belarus, the UN would be better spent its time on there. So basically saying, you know what, there's worse things going on. Why don't you focus on Iran? Why don't you focus on Syria? Pay no attention to the draconian laws that are being passed here in Canada. Mind your own business. Pay attention to other areas of the world. Leave us alone. We're doing fine. We voted on this bill democratically. And so that's just it. We always have to remember that these bills that are passed are always amounts to a very slippery slope that leads towards more tyranny. And just like with the Privacy Commissioner taking on the issue of surveillance on our private conversations at airports, similar things has to be done at every step of the way when these draconian bills are introduced. So anyways, that's something I wanted to bring to your attention today. Tomorrow I have a friend of mine who's coming into town from Montreal. So I haven't spoken to him about this yet, but I'm going to see if maybe I can interview him tomorrow. He's a very well-educated individual. He understands a lot of the things geopolitically going on in the world. And of course, he's been living in Montreal, so he's been living and breathing the whole situation there. So I'm supposed to meet up with him tomorrow, so I'm going to see if maybe he'll give me a short little interview to give me some insight into how he perceives some of these things going on recently in Quebec. And anyways, guys, that is it for today. I want to thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you all right back here tomorrow. Take care.